Hi knitters! Welcome. It's been such a long time since I sat down with you all, but today we're going to have some tea. We're having some strawberry vanilla tea, and I thought that we would have a little chat about some things in the past. My mom was over here recently, and she told me this story again of this afghan that she made when she was young that I love so much. And I thought, I've got to tell you guys the story because it's such a neat story, and I think many of you can relate to it. Here is the afghan. Let me show you. I'm going to just jump right into the story because it's so fun. Here it is. It's this bright a granny square afghan. And I don't know, I first learned how to crochet. I wasn't a knitter first. My mom taught me how to crochet first, and then I learned how to knit. And I don't know if any of you were like that, if you learned one before the other, but it's not uncommon to learn one first and then to go to another. But here it is. You can see it's a really bright, beautiful afghan. It's mostly made out of wool, but there are a few places where it is a synthetic, right here in the middle. Whoops! Those bright, multicolored ones, they're synthetic. And over the years, because it's been so many places, and I think my mom, before she realized that it was wool, when she was young, she washed it, so it's slightly felted, but that gives it more character, which I love. Anyways, I loved this afghan, and ever since I could remember, I remember seeing this afghan in our house. It was either over the back of the couch in the living room, or over a chair in the living room. We would use it for the carpet of tents when we would make tents in the living room, or we would cuddle up underneath it and read books on rainy days. And I found this picture of me. I'm the baby, and there's my sister holding me, Heather, and then my two cousins. And there is the afghan. Can you see it? On the couch behind us. And this is when we lived in Vermont. And I remember this afghan in our house in Pennsylvania, in our house in Chicago, and then in our house, both houses here in the Midwest. And because we moved around so much, it was one of those pieces that really made you feel like you were home. I don't know if any of you have moved around, but you say goodbye to things. You just can't take everything with you when you move. Especially our family, we had a overseas move when we were little, and you can't take everything with you. So the pieces that you do take with you are super special. And I don't know if that afghan made it to Africa. I don't think so. I think it was packed up and left here when we made that overseas move. But because it was at every other house that I remember here in the States, it's super special. So when I got married, I wanted to make an afghan to take with me. I mean, I really wanted to take the afghan with me, but I knew I couldn't. And so I decided that I would like to make one of my own so that I could remember the afghan that Mom always had in our house. So here is my version. And I did make it the summer that I was engaged, before I was married. And I did bright colors with cream, because I like cream. And I used bits and pieces of yarn that I had. I have hand spun in here. I have some of my first hand spun, which I love to see because it's, here, let me take a sip of this. Strawberries and cream tea by Charbrew. It's delicious. Here is some of the hand spun. It's the that whole granny square is hand spun. Some of the first hand spun that I ever did is in here. Some wool that I got on a trip to Scotland is in here. So there's a lot of fun memories in this blanket. But I also didn't have enough bright colors. So I got some regular old fisherman's wool, Lion brand, and I dyed it. And I dyed it with Kool-Aid because that's all I knew at that time. I dyed this one and that bright, the yellow and the orange. And you know, Kool-Aid will fade over time because it's not an acid dye. That red and that pink and that yellow is Kool-Aid. But it makes it look vintage, which I love. I mean, the blanket's already 11 years old, so it's getting older, but it's not vintage yet. But it looks like it, which is really cool because of the way that the dye, the Kool-Aid dye is fading a little bit. Oh, here, I love this color. That light blue and the yellow, those are both Kool-Aid dyes. So, anyways, I made this blanket, and for when I got married, and I took it to my house, and then it wasn't until late last year when my mom was living with us after, before I had Arthur, I was on bed rest. And so my mom was living here with us to help with things, and we were talking about the Granny Square Afghan, and she said yes. She made it when she was about 15 or 16. She went away to her Auntie, I'm going to get this right, I hope, Auntie Helen. I should check my notebook. I have a little notebook where I wrote down the story. Here's my little notebook. My mom and I make these things we cut up magazines and make the pages pretty, and then we just doodle and draw and sketch and write whatever we want to. So this is either in my knitting bag or next to the phone. When I watch other podcasts, I write lots of notes about yarn that I want to look up or things that I want to try. So I wrote down the story because I want to keep it. I think it's such a neat story about this Afghan. She went when she was 15 or 16 to her Auntie Helen's house, and Auntie Helen had she lived in Trenton, New Jersey, and she had a yarn shop. Oh my goodness. I was so excited that there was somebody else in the family that was really into yarn. So this would be my great aunt, and I never met her. My mom is an artist. She is really good. Here is her picture of my new rose in the garden. I have a new rose called Music Box. She does beautiful watercolors. My older sister can do watercolors, and so can my younger sister. They all can draw, and I can't. I really can't. My older sister does beautiful calligraphy, and my younger sister can really draw. She doesn't think she can, but she can really draw really cute cartoons. Anyways, I always felt left out because I couldn't draw, and I couldn't paint, and whatever I tried looked really dorky. You know how when you're surrounded by people who can really do it really well, and then you try, and it looks really dorky, and so you don't even want to try to continue because it just looks so dorky? So I kind of gave up in the watercolor art drawing field, and I took to knitting because that was something that I could create, and I could create it without a pattern, and it was my creative outlet. Well, it was so cool to find out that this great aunt had the same love for knitting that I did. and that there was a yarn shop owner in the family. And another reason why I find that so cool is because for, I think it was about 3 years after I stopped my professional job, which was court reporting, I worked part-time in a knitting shop here in town, which is no longer open, but I loved that time. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to help the customers and see the new yarns, and I learned so much. But anyways, this was back in the early 60s. My great aunt had a knitting shop in Trenton, New Jersey. And I was just so excited about that. Mom said that it had big, wide plank wooden floors, and it was filled with wool, and then she said a lot of baby acrylic yarn, but a lot of the plain wool, probably something like Cascade 220 that is the workhorse wool for us, but not Cascade 220. Probably a lot of patents, actually. They had patents back then. So here you can see, just Mom said that there was a lot of bright colors in the shop, and so her aunt lived on a farm, and she had one of these granny square blankets in her house, and Mom loved it. So she said, well, let me teach you how to make a granny square blanket. My mom didn't know how to crochet. I'll teach you how to make one, and you can copy mine. So Aunt Helen went and found all the scraps from her yarn shop, and Mom made a copy of her Auntie Helen's granny square blanket out of Auntie Helen's scraps from her yarn shop. So these are the scraps from Auntie Helen's yarn shop. And this is a copy of Auntie Helen's granny square blanket that Mom did. So it's kind of fun to see how each generation made their own blanket. I did it without knowing. I didn't know the full story about Auntie Helen's yarn shop and how Mom made a copy of Auntie Helen's granny square blanket until last year. And Mom and I were talking about it just last week when she was over. So I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to tell. Here is a picture. This isn't a very good picture because it is, my mom took a picture of her picture and then texted it to me, and then I printed it off. So the quality is really great. But here is, let's see if I can show you. This lady right here is the mother of all of these girls. And this is my grandmother right there. And then these are her 4 sisters, and this is Aunt Jane. And this is Aunt Helen. I hope I get this right. And this is Aunt Mary. And my grandmother's name was Ruth. So there are the girls. And Auntie Helen is the one that had the yarn shop. So, and I know that Auntie Jane does a lot of knitting, or did a lot of knitting too. And I wish she's still living, and I would love to sit with her and talk with her about knitting sometime. But we'll see. She lives far away in Maine. So we'll see. But I just love that picture of all the girls, because I grew up with only sisters too. There's 3 of us. Which, by the way, it's so funny. They don't watch the podcast, which they don't have to. I asked my older sister, if she watched the last one, and she's like, yeah, I watched a minute and a half. So they won't get to this part. But anyways, I thought that was a cool story about knitting in families. And even if I never met Auntie Helen, I actually never met my grandma either. Grandma Ruth right there in the picture. She's sitting so elegantly on the couch. So it's so fun to know about people who love the same things that you do from your past. And I don't know if any of you have stories like that, but if you do, go ahead and share them, because I would love, love, love to know about them. So, and I noticed we have 3 new members in the Ravelry group. And if you have a story that you want to share about knitting in your family, or crochet, or just the love of fiber arts in your family, go ahead and find the Ravelry group in Ravelry. It's the Classic Cable Knits or the CC Knits Ravelry group, and join, and I'll start a thread for this podcast episode and share your story because it would be fun to hear about. So anyways, that's that story. Now, I haven't seen you guys in such a long time. We have been very sick here at this house. We've been sick for a month, I think, and Arthur and I had to go on a second round of antibiotics, which is crazy, but I think we're getting over it. But in that month, there's been a lot going on. So I will show you, since we were just on Afghan, let me talk about how when I go food shopping, my mom comes over and watches the boys for me, which is really awesome. And I know I won't always have that luxury, but right now it's really nice. The last time I took both of the boys out shopping, John climbed the cart before I had a chance to get Arthur out of his car seat and into the cart. And John climbed the cart, and it toppled over on him in the parking lot. He twisted and bruised his leg. I thought he had broken it. I was so afraid. And I had to get Arthur quickly back in the car, then scoop up John before he got run over, get him back into the car, check out his leg, and he said, "Mama, I just don't feel like going shopping now. I think I need a treat." So we had to go get a muffin at Panera, and that soothed him. So my treat when I go food shopping by myself, is to stop in either Michael's or our local thrift store that's pay by the pound, and it's kind of scary to go in. But my sister does it, and she gets these really cool things, so of course I'm not to be outdone by my sister, right? So I've got to go in and look for these cool things too. And if you can stomach it, you can find some really cool things. And as I found these things, I want to go back and find more of these things because these are lovely handmade things that get thrown out if you don't find them. So, not that I need a lot, but I found this beautiful hand-embroidered tablecloth, and I got it, because it's pay by the pound and you pay by the pound, I got it for something like 35 cents. But isn't it beautiful? It's tea table size, and it has just beautiful embroidery at the bottom with beautiful tight French knots. I couldn't do French knots like that. Those are just some beautifully done French knots. So I was quite pleased with that little acquisition. And then I went in looking for some quilts to throw on the ground outside when we play outside, but I found another Afghan. And this is a beautiful crochet and lace Afghan, and it's a perfect lap size. You can see it's absolutely gorgeous. So I got that to throw over the couch in the sunroom. And the nice thing about these kinds of things, finding these little handmade treasures at a pay-by-the-pound thrift shop, is you don't feel bad about using them because they were going to be thrown away anyway. So let the boys, play with them and use them and decorate your house with them because they're so beautiful, and don't let them go to waste. So if you have a pay-by-the-pound thrift store around where you live, if you can stomach it, because it's quite kind of scary, you should try it because you can find some really cool treasures there. So those are the really cool treasures that I found the last 3 weeks or so. I have been spinning, and I've been really enjoying it. Here is the hand spun from the fiber that John dyed for me. And I still have a tiny bit more to pull off the wheel. This is about 382 yards of fingering weight. So it's going to be lovely sock yarn. And we dyed this with Wilton food dyes. And if you haven't seen the last episode of the podcast, you should go back and look, because there's a video of John dyeing the yarn, and he loved it. So I'm going to have to let him do this again. But he had a lot of fun with that. And then, in the spinning department, I really have taken to town making Rolags. And oh my goodness, they are so much fun to make. These are just my Rolags that I've made using dowels. And because I'm just using dowels, actually it's a big knitting needle, they're very soft and airy, and so they spin up really, 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 really well. So if you haven't tried that method, you really need to try it. And I think there's a link on the previous podcast show notes, so you can find it there. Here is another one. I did it 3-color, and I did it so that it will be striping. So that I can't wait. I can't wait to empty out the spindle, the spinning wheel, and get that set up. Then we had the TNNA here in Indianapolis at the beginning of May, and my dear friend and I went. Well, 2 dear friends. We went all together, and it was a very quiet TNNA, more so than other years, which was really interesting. And I would say, after going through it all, I come to the conclusion that the new things, the scene where it's happening, is really online with you all and the indie dyers, and the creative things are happening with you guys online, which is really, really cool. The power is back in the hands of the knitter, which is really exciting. And you guys are forming and dictating what you want in yarn, and it's really, really cool to see. So, but I thought they handed out a bunch of different fiber, and I went through it because I thought, well, this is really cool for you guys to see what is available in shops versus online. And I picked out 2 that here you can see these. They're beautiful. But do you see how they all are kind of dull? There's nothing really exciting about them. Here's this one. And they're beautiful. But just look at the color of this. Look at how that was dyed. It's just superior. And then this one too is by the same company. So, and when I look at things, I always look, what's new, what's exciting, what have people come up with? It's just the color is just so much richer, and the fiber content is different. So I picked out 2 that, if you have a chance to find these 2 fibers in a yarn shop, because that's usually where they would be sold, you should look for it. Otherwise, I think the really good fiber is on Etsy or Big Cartel online. So Sweet Georgia is the first one. There's 2 that I picked out that are top. And the first one is Sweet Georgia. And she does a beautiful top. It's Polworth and silk. 85% Polworth wool and 15% Tussa silk. And it's beautiful. It's sold in braids of 4 ounces each. So Sweet Georgia. If you can find her wool in a yarn shop to spin, it's definitely worth getting. And then the next one that I thought was just superior to all the others was this one. You can see the dye and the sheen in it is just incredible. And also the feel. This is Happy Fuzzy Yarn, and that was a new yarn company to me. So I don't know if how long it's been around, but it's new to me. It is super fine merino top. So, and it does. It feels totally different than the other merino that the other vendors were selling. Or it's a wholesale show, so they weren't really selling it, but they had on display. And it is definitely better quality. And it's sold in 4-ounce braids as well. And it looks like they retail for about $24 for 4 ounces, which is great. It's 100% superfine merino, and it's a 19 micron, which is great. So, and the colors are so vivid in that. So, Happy Fuzzy Yarn is the name of that yarn company. So the two, Sweet Georgia and Happy Fuzzy Yarn, if you can find those in a yarn shop, those two would be definitely worth getting. But anyways, I just thought that would be interesting for you guys to know about. There's a lot out there, and it's nice to know the good ones to get, so you don't waste your time or money. I'm going to spin all of that together and make a fun skein. So we'll see how it goes. By the way, you can do that when you buy a braid on Etsy, and sometimes the dyer is really nice and slips in a little bit of a sample. Well, I save my samples up and I make happy yarn, and it's a lot of fun. So, anyways, that's that in the spinning department. What have I been doing in the knitting department? Oh my goodness, I forgot the most important one. I finished a sweater. Well, we might just have to save that for next time because it's upstairs. But I finished a sweater. It's a beautiful sweater too. There's no pattern for it right now, but you guys should tell me what you think. Maybe I'll show it to you next time, and you can tell me what you think if I should write it up as a pattern or not. This was definitely not a pattern. This is, I'm really into polka dots. I just get into these funks every once in a while. And I love polka dots right now. For instance, my project bags. But this, do you remember I was working on last time a polka dot cowl? Well, I ripped out the polka dot cowl because I didn't like it, and I reknit it as a triangle shawl. But look at the triangle. I just did not get it to work. So this is going on the rip pile, and I'm going to go back to the drawing board and figure out something else to do with polka dots. But I love red and white polka dots. I think they're so happy. So if you know of a polka dot pattern that you really like, put it in the comments or put it on the in the Ravelry Facebook group, the Classic Cable Knits Ravelry Facebook group book. I need to make or change the name of the Facebook group probably. This is a Knitter's Life podcast, and my blog is a Knitter's Life. I design under the pattern label Classic Cable Knits, although that is changing too. So I think I probably should go ahead and change the group name on Ravelry to a Knitter's Life podcast, since that will give us an outlet for all of us to talk and chat and interact. So anyways, right now it's Classic Cable Knits Ravelry group, and you can find it there. If you don't find Classic Cable Knits, look under a Knitter's Life, because I might have changed it already. So anyways, let me know what you think, and if you have a pattern that you like for polka dots. I have done the Pop Spots shawl by Loop of London, and I love that shawl. That was a fun one. It's a little bit too big to wear as just a neckerchief, and I was kind of looking for a cowl or a neckerchief kind of pattern. But anyways, a good friend of mine, this is another finished object, although I haven't woven in the ends, but my good friend Gina of Brownie Knits, she just designed this really cute neckerchief to do in crochet, which is really cool. And it's the perfect pattern for that multicolored skein that you might have, that you loved the colors, but sometimes in knitting it just, when you knit it up, it doesn't look quite the same as what you thought it would look in the skein. But I just love how this crocheted up and how it looks. It's a little neckerchief with crochet, and it has a sweet little picot edge. If you can see it. Isn't that cute? It's called Eva. All right. So I'll put the pattern link in the show notes so that you guys can make your own. And if you don't know how to crochet, you should learn because it's fun. And there's some cool things you can do with crochet. So that was another finished thing that I made and I loved. And then I did finish some socks. Because I am determined this year is the year of socks. After last winter being so cold and being horrendous, I decided that I need some socks. I knit all my socks, as I told you before, for my mom. And that means I only had 2 pairs of wool socks this past winter, and that was just not right. So I am knitting socks, and I will knit some socks again for my mom. But I finished the other the other sock to the pair of the Raga Stripes that I did from Patton. And I did the sweet tomato heel on this one. And I showed this to you guys last time. But isn't it cute? I just love how the 3 wedges. I think it's such a fun heel, especially for self-striping sock yarn. So I finished those. And then I finished these. This was an experiment. I got, dare I admit it, I got just regular old yarn from Joann Fabrics. I admitted it. Yep. I did, because I liked the colors. And you guys, what is with it? You cannot find, at least not around me, self-striping sock yarn that's cute. What are the yarn companies doing? They're not doing it. So if you want cute self-striping sock yarn, you have to go on Etsy. And the cute stuff gets sold off in the immediate updates. So what you gonna do? I don't know. Maybe I have to learn how to dye it myself. I don't know. I don't have that kind of time. Anyways, so this was some cheap old microfiber, can you believe it? Yarn from Joann Fabrics. I know, I admitted it. But I had fun with it. I loved the colors. I thought the colors were so fun. And they're a bit thicker. I don't know if I'd knit it again. They're a bit thicker than, I would like exactly. But they'll be fun. They'll be great boot socks. So, or house socks. So, anyways. And I got the Fish Lips Kiss Heel pattern, and I was trying that out, and I was like, I've done this before, but she explains it so well. It's definitely, if you haven't tried it yet, it's fun. Get it. She explains things really well. It's a very in-depth pattern. You're not getting just one page for $1. You're getting quite a few pages. I want to say that there were 16 pages of information. Maybe there was 12. But it was quite a lot of information. So how to fit your sock, how to make a little cardboard cutout of your foot or whoever's foot you're trying to match it to. So it was lots of good information. Very in-depth. Very much appreciated. I think that is it for everything that I have finished. But I have some little things on the needle. I have this crazy fun sock yarn that I did my friend Gina, the same one who did the beautiful crochet neckerchief pattern, Eva, she just had a birthday. So we got together and she treated us to pedicures, which was my first time ever having a pedicure. It was amazing. I felt like a little kid in a candy shop. I kept on, squealing and commenting that this was just so much fun, and it was. It was so much fun. It was such an awesome experience. So thank you, Gina, again. And then we went out to lunch, and then we went back to her house, and we dyed yarn with Kool-Aid. It was so much fun. So I dyed, I wanted something that looked like summer. So here we go. I dyed summer. It looks like sun, sand, and sea. And then, I don't know how I did this, but it zigzags on me. Isn't that wild? That is just so wild. So I'm enjoying it. As I knit along, I keep on wondering, okay, where is it going to zigzag to next? Which is so fun. I don't know how I did that, but anyways, if you know how I did that, come over to the Ravelry group and tell me. I think it's cool. So, anyways, I'm working on that because Operation Sock Drawer must continue. And then I'm kind of in the middle of some knitting for work, so I haven't been able to start yet. So I decided I needed some relaxing knitting, and I cast on with, it's all hand spun yarn. I cast on do you recognize it? Color Affection shawl. And it's heavily modified. It is not with fingering weight or lace weight yarn. And so I'm not doing the same number of repeats. But anyways, there it is. And I'm really, really enjoying it. So hopefully I'll have that finished by next time. So, and next time I would like to share with you guys how my great-grandmother's World War II knitting group, I have some patterns from her from the Red Cross and from Britain that they would knit for the soldiers. She was Scottish, and she came over to here before the war. Her husband got a job with Marconi in Long Island in RCA, so with radios. So I'd love to share that with you next time, and I have a picture of her knitting group from the 40s. It's really, really cool. So until then, happy knitting. You can find me on Instagram as CC Knits. You can find me on Ravelry as Christina Wall, or you can join the Ravelry group Classic Cable Knits, or you can find me on my blog on knitterslife.blogspot.com. So I hope you come and join the fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.